to your local church should be easy, and with Tithely, it is. Just download the app and securely register your credit or debit card. You're done. Now you can give during church services or anywhere else. Use Tithely to give a one-time gift or set up recurring donations. It's that simple. It's fast, secure, and easy to use. Tithely, the simplest way to give to your local church.
Good morning, church. Good morning, Newsoul. Let's stand up and worship together. But it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Came along. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied right here in your love. There's nothing, oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing is better than you. Oh, I searched and I found it's true. I'm not afraid. Now I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. And no, there's nothing dancing. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. And you're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. And you're the only one who can. Graves into gardens. You turn graves into gardens. It's what you do. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing that is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Graves in the gardens. You turn graves into gardens. That's what you do. You turn bones into armies. Every time you turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. And you turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. And you're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can. Yeah.
Together, we are creating a new future for the Valley because of your generosity. Your financial support is being used to produce content and create a loving community that is bringing hope to hurting people during the COVID pandemic and quarantine. Your giving equips Newsoul Ribera with tools to provide access to our services and support for people who can only meet with us by phone. Because you give, the hungry are being fed, and we've launched a winter warmth campaign to protect people in the Valley from the cold this season. With your help, in 2021, we're not slowing down, but ramping up a campaign to expand our digital reach to help and inspire more kids, students, singles, families, and seniors. Your giving is making a difference in the community. 1 Timothy 6:17-19 says, "Don't be full of yourselves and obsessed with money, which is here today and gone tomorrow. Go after God, who piles on all the riches we could ever manage. Do good. Be rich in helping others. Be extravagantly generous. If you do that, you'll build a treasury that will last, gaining life that is truly life." We have quick and easy ways for you to give. Online, newsoulribera.com. By text BLESS to 94000. By app, download the Tithely app. Or by mail, Newsoul Ribera, P.O. Box 574, Ribera, New Mexico 87560. To receive text updates from Newsoul Ribera, text Ribera to 94000.
Hello. Happy Memorial Day weekend. We remember those that we've lost and those that have fought bravely to give us freedom. So we want to remember all of those today and remember what this day is all about, this weekend's all about. But for many of us, it's also the end of school and the beginning of summer. And the world feels a little freer, a little more like before it was before the global pandemic disrupted all of our lives. And wherever you are and whoever you are, however you're connecting with us today, I'm just want to congratulate you for making it this far. You've survived, and I'm excited to be with you today. Today we begin a brand new series, and I'm convinced that if you spend time listening, absorbing, and applying this content to your life, you will make better decisions and have fewer regrets in your life. And that's a big deal to me personally, because even if I've never met you in person, you are the audience that I care most about, the ones I feel most responsible for and am accountable to. I want you to make good decisions and to help your kids and nieces and nephews and friends and colleagues and even your grandchildren make good decisions as well. Because if you're able to make better decisions, you will live better and you will become better at life. The big idea behind this series is the ignored relationship between good questions and good decisions. I want you to think about a bad decision that you've made. It could be health or finance. Would you have made a better decision if you had better information? Maybe if you had known then what you know now, would you have made a better decision? Would you have chosen differently? How often have you made a decision you regret because you had bad information or not enough information? If you ask good questions, you get better information, which ultimately leads to better decisions. Good questions will help you make better decisions, and this will help you decide better and regret less. That's the name of the series that we're beginning today. This is questions to help you do just that. And these questions will help you every time you make a decision. If you will ask these questions, if you will answer honestly and then act accordingly, you will decide better and you will regret less. We've had a couple of funerals at Newsoul Ribera over the last few weeks, and when you attend a funeral, you get an opportunity to reflect on something that most of us resist, that all of us will have a final day someday. And when people attend your funeral one day, what do you want your loved ones and those closest to you to say about you? What if today was your last day? Would you have any regrets? Really? What would they say if your funeral was today? Really? Is there anything that you would change? Well, if there is, I have good news for you. That this series will give you a brand new opportunity to do something about it. If you begin today to make better decisions, you will make sure that your life is going in the direction that you want it to go, that your life will end up where you want it to be at the very end of your life. So this is important because the decisions you make today and from now on will impact your descendants that you will never even meet and will help determine the future of generations to come, because you're not the only person that is impacted by your decisions. Your decisions will help shape their story. Your fingerprints will be on someone else's future, your descendants and the people you're connected to. For example, many of you know that my father was abandoned by his father as a child. He grew up near Ribera in Sena, New Mexico, and he and his 6 brothers and sisters, he my grandfather admitted my grandmother into the state mental hospital in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and ran off with one of the nurses there to begin a brand new family with her. My father spent years living with relatives, bouncing around from house to house, and even spent time in an orphanage. As you can imagine, he and his siblings felt rejected, hurt, and angry towards their father and their life and life itself, some of them even towards God. Many of my father's siblings carried all of that pain inside of them, and it resulted in influencing their own destructive life choices. And it brought pain and suffering to them and the people closest to them. When my dad decided to become a Jesus follower, he had to decide whether he was going to forgive his father or not. His father had not asked for forgiveness and wasn't likely to do so. He decided to go to his father, who was sick in the hospital at the time, and forgive him. It was one of the toughest decisions of his life, but he did it. He spent the next 40 years of his life loving his wife, raising his family, free of all that anger and bitterness. He created churches and was instrumental in transforming the lives of thousands of people. He helped save marriages and keep people from killing themselves. He helped addicts find freedom and developed leaders of other churches and schools and businesses. The lives impacted include my own life and the life of Newsoul Ribera. What if he had made a different decision? What if he decided to hold on to the hate and anger? No one would have blamed him, right? So what about your life? What if your mother or father had made a different decision about the things that impacted you and your family? What if they hadn't conquered that destructive habit? Or what if they had? How would the lives of all those people that I mentioned be different? How about your life? My life? None of us know for sure what hangs in the balance of our decisions. We never know for sure. But what we do know for sure is that private decisions have public outcomes. Your personal decisions will probably impact someone else's decisions. Maybe you never thought about this, but the most significant thing you do may not be something that you do. It may not be how famous or wealthy you become, or the kind of job you had, or what your accomplishments are in this life. It may be the common, ordinary, everyday decisions you make, because your decisions determine the direction and the quality of your life. You know this, but there's a good chance that where you are today financially, emotionally, physically, mentally, in your career, in your life, is a result of the decisions you've made along the way. Even if there were circumstances out of your control that impacted your life, your responses to those circumstances and the decisions of others help bring you to where you are in life right now, because a response is a decision. We decide how we respond. We choose our response. This is how you avoid a victim mentality, where you feel that you have no power in your life or over your life, that the choices of others in the past are responsible for where you are in your life today. To be fully human means that you are not a robot. You are not pre-programmed to give automated responses and choices. To be fully human means that you have the power to choose the life you want to lead. A position not even God has in your life. This is important because God will not decide for you, because He wants you to learn how to make good decisions. Part of what it means to live well is to learn how to make good decisions. This is not easy. It's not quick. And God will not do this for you. It's a gift He's decided to give to you. You are free to choose. You are free to decide. So how do you decide? How do you make your decisions? We all have a grid or a list of questions we use before we make any decision. Every decision. From getting out of bed, to what kind of food we eat, to who we marry, to what kind of job and career we choose. You may not have thought of them in this way, but They're might be subconscious, but they help inform your decisions. Yours might look like this. Under the surface of every decision, small to large, you ask yourself these questions. Will I enjoy this? Will this hurt me? Will it hurt someone else? Will anyone find out? What's my out if someone finds out? Yours might look like this, or it might be a little bit different. But in this series, I want to give you a few more questions that will help you get better information and ultimately help you make better decisions. Here's a saying I think would be very helpful for you to memorize as we begin this journey to better decisions. And it comes from the book of Proverbs. It's an ancient saying. It says, "The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty." The prudent, the wise, the shrewd see the danger coming and they do something about it. They prepare for it so they're protected. But the simple, the foolish, the immature, the naive, the proud keep going and pay the penalty. This is important because the easiest person to deceive is the person in the mirror. That's right. Think about the regrets you have in your life. Think about the bad decisions you made. You got a few of them in mind? Think about them for a minute. Think of those regrets you have. Do you know who was there for all of them? Who was the one who probably masterminded most of them? You. That's right. If you think about it, you have probably done more to undercut your success, your peace of mind, and your joy in life than anyone else on the planet. I know this because I'm just like you. Every regret I have came from a terrible choice and decision I made. I thought up the plan. I executed it to perfection. I had to suffer the pain from it too. So think about it. After your bad decision and looking back, don't you say, "What was I thinking?" I know I do. The truth is, you weren't thinking, you were selling. That's right. There's a little sales associate that lives in your head and in my head that has sold you and I on every bad decision we've ever made. His voice or her voice sounds a lot like your voice and my voice. And when you're going to make a bad decision, that little sales associate starts selling you on how it's not just a want you have, but that it's a need. And that you need it now. Doesn't matter what's going to happen later. And about how you deserve it. How not making the decision will actually be bad for your mental health and physical health. This is called rationalizing. It's where we tell ourselves rational lies to make us feel better about our bad choices. If you and I are going to have any chance of making better decisions today and in the future, we have to acknowledge this important truth. Those of you who are at AA or NA or even CA, you know that if someone wants to have any freedom from a destructive decision, that rigorous honesty is the first rule of recovery. You can't recover without it. Not just honesty, but rigorous honesty, because we can find a way to sell ourselves on even the most obvious bad decisions. Just think back on all those regrets you have. If you need proof, just think about those. You sold yourself on every one of those decisions. In our culture, we have made positive self-esteem one of the most important values in life. Since you were in preschool, you were given a graduation ceremony from passing from naps and toilet training to knowing your letters and spelling your name. You were given a participation ribbon and a trophy for showing up to athletic events, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with any of those things. It's good to celebrate life and to value our children and to have a positive self-image. Our culture makes sure that we feel very good about ourselves. But if you're going to make better decisions, you need to begin with rigorous honesty, which means that you tell yourself the truth, even if the truth makes you feel bad about yourself. There are just some times that feeling bad about yourself is just good common sense, because you'll never get to where you need to be until you acknowledge where you actually are. Ask anyone who's lost weight, gotten lost on a trip, got out of debt, or had to make big life changes because of their health. What do you call people who ignore calls and letters from bill collectors, or who refuse to clean up the mess in their homes or yards, or even their children's diapers or face? You call them irresponsible. They refuse to take ownership or responsibility for their own life. They make bad decisions. So we finally get to the first question of this series that you can use to help you decide better and regret less. It's question number 1 in the series. It's the integrity question. Now, typically, and here's what it is. Am I being honest with myself? This is what you ask yourself before you make any decision. Am I being honest with myself, really? Now, typically someone like me, a pastor or a church leader, would tell you exactly what to do when you need to make decisions, but that's not what I'm going to do. Chances are you just do what you want anyway. You always have, right? So I'm not going to tell you to be honest with yourself and then go do the right thing. Instead, I want you to be honest with yourself and deal with what to do with that information later. You owe it to yourself to at least be honest with yourself. We add the really part in this question because we tell ourselves rational lies, don't we? Even when the truth is right in our face, how do we respond? Come on, think about the regrets in your life. We say, oh, we're okay, or nothing's gonna happen, or it's no big deal, or who am I hurting, or no one will ever find out. We start selling ourselves on a bad decision. So from now on, to make better decisions and have fewer regrets, as soon as you start selling you on anything, you should hit pause. You should just pause. I'm not asking you to stop forever, but just pause for a moment and think about that sales associate and the sales job he or she is doing in your mind, because we rarely have to sell ourselves on a good idea, right? If it's a good idea, it sort of sells itself. You normally don't have to talk yourself into eating more veggies or going for a walk a few times a week or drinking more water. When your doctor suggests these things, we normally don't argue with them and want more proof or data or research citations from a medical journal. We don't tell him that they're bad ideas. So it seems like we should, and so we got this part, right? Just make better decisions and be honest with ourselves. Well, it would seem like we could just end right here because it's pretty obvious what we should do. But we don't do it, do we? We know the good decision we should make, but we choose something else instead. It seems like we can't hear, or we refuse to hear good information or wise counsel that will help us decide better and regret less. If we did, we'd all be out of debt and eat more veggies than sugar. Our relationships, careers, and our lives would be better. You knew the decision you should have made. Come on. Why didn't you make it? It's like there's something wrong with us. There's something wrong with you. Something wrong with me. So, what's wrong with us? We all suffer from confirmation bias. This is when you seek information that supports your opinion and rejects or ignores any conflicting data. Once you have made a decision, made your mind up about anything, your brain goes to work finding all the reasons to confirm why your decision is a good one, even if it isn't. And it also goes to work rejecting any reality that conflicts with your decision, even if there's more reasons to not make bad decisions. It's really smart It's the brain, after all. And it's why we don't see the world as it is, but instead we tend to see the world as we are. We all suffer from this. To illustrate, there's a true story, a narrative that may prove instructive and helpful to us in this conversation, in this talk, in this message. It begins with a professional life coach and a royal advisor named Jeremiah. He wrote the Old Testament book of Jeremiah. The story takes place 600 years before the birth of Jesus in ancient Israel. And Jeremiah advised and coached a king there named Jehoiakim, along with other kings. Their careers would have gone much smoother and they would have lived a lot longer had they taken Jeremiah's advice. But the advantage of being a king is you get to do whatever you want and you don't have to take anyone's advice. King Jehoiakim, who we'll call King J for simplicity's sake, he became king when he was a teenager. His nation, Judah, was paying a financial tribute or a tax to Babylon, who was the most powerful empire in the world at that time. It was either pay tribute to Babylon or get conquered. By paying tribute, they received military support against any of their enemies, and Judah was able to govern their own affairs. After 3 years of paying tribute to the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, King J decides, you know what, enough of that, and he quit making payments. Worse than that, he switched banks. He declared loyalty to Babylon's fiercest rival, Egypt. When Jeremiah heard about King J's decision, he begged him not to do this. It wasn't just a bad decision, it was dangerous, because Nebuchadnezzar was in a foul military mood at the time because he had been defeated in battle by Egypt recently. He was looking to vent his frustration, and a vassal state that had just sworn allegiance to his enemy would be a perfect target. Jeremiah advised King J that not only was the decision dangerous and foolish, but that it was in direct opposition to God's will for the people and the nation. King J refused to listen to Jeremiah because that's the beauty of being a king. You don't have to take anyone's advice. And he had already abandoned the ways of Judaism and given up living by the moral code of the agreement God had made with them. And sure enough, King Nebuchadnezzar did exactly what Jeremiah predicted. He came looking for his tribute. His armies laid siege to the city for 3 months. They entered the city, they put King J in chains, and they led him all the way back to Babylon. He added King J to his king collection. You see, King Nebuchadnezzar collected kings. Some people collect coins or dolls, but King Nebuchadnezzar was so powerful that he collected kings. When he conquered a nation, he would take the king as a prisoner. On special occasions when he wanted to show off, he would bring them out and parade them in golden chains around the room for everyone to see. And they would have to put their hand on the shoulder of the king in front of them. They had to, because Nebuchadnezzar had taken their eyes out and they were blind. Before leaving Jerusalem, though, King Nebuchadnezzar crowned King J's son, who we'll call King J Jr. He was 18 years old, and 3 months later, King Nebuchadnezzar changes his mind and decides to come back to Jerusalem, and he adds King J Jr. to his king collection. Now, as you can imagine, no one is excited about taking his place and being the next king, but every kingdom needs a ruler. So Nebuchadnezzar appointed King J Jr.'s uncle, whom we'll call King Z, to the throne. He was 21 years old, and what King Z didn't know, and no one knew, is that he would be the last king ancient Judah ever had. Because, like the kings before him, King Z would not listen to sound advice. In fact, one of the Jewish historians said about him, he did evil in the eyes of the Lord and did not humble himself before Jeremiah the prophet. Once his mind was made up, he could not hear wise counsel or good information. He did exactly what those before him had done, even though he had seen how it worked out. He refused to pay tribute to Babylon. Jeremiah pleads with King Z to change his mind, that it was going to end badly for everyone, for the nation, for the people, for him and his family. But kings will be kings. And Jeremiah took his message to the streets and people, and he went around the community saying that when Nebuchadnezzar shows up, that the people should let him in the city. When King Z heard that what Jeremiah was doing, he had him thrown into an empty well in the ground so he could shut him up. Because he was scaring the children. Actually, he was scaring the entire population. And they should have been scared. Sure enough, just as Jeremiah predicted, Nebuchadnezzar showed up with his army, surrounded the city, and starved the city into submission. The people were starving to death. When King Z realized his mistake, what did he do? He ran to that empty well to find Jeremiah. He says, Jeremiah, pray to God to save us. Jeremiah told King Z it was too late, that the fate of the city had been sealed. Their only hope was to open the gates and beg for mercy from Nebuchadnezzar. But King Z knew that this would end badly for him. So he decided to sneak out of the city in the middle of the night with his children and his bodyguard. Another really bad decision. King Z was eventually captured and forced to watch as Babylonian soldiers butchered each one of his children one by one before his eyes. And that was the last thing he ever saw, because he was blinded and added to Nebuchadnezzar's king collection. When you read a story like that, or watch a movie or a show like that, or maybe see it played out in real life, you can't help but think, what were they thinking? How could anyone be so clueless, so deceived? Jeremiah was there for all of this tragedy, and he answers that question for us. He writes, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Your heart, my heart, his heart, her heart, even those precious angel children and grandchildren of yours, their hearts. He chose his words carefully, Jeremiah did. See, deceitful is different than dishonest, right? Dishonest is just not honest, and it's easier to spot. But deceitful is tougher to see. It's half-truths and a few truths and untruth, and they're all mixed together. It's pretending and faking, acting. Dishonest people aren't always smart enough to trick you, but deceitful is difficult to detect. Deceitful people are dangerous because they are smart enough to fool you, smart enough to fool themselves. Our hearts, Jeremiah says, are deceitful. We don't just lie to ourselves, we deceive ourselves. When our heart decides on what it wants, it sends a message to the brain. We talked about this a moment ago. Hey brain, figure out a way to get us what we want. And the brain goes to work. And your brain is really smart, and it usually comes up with reasons why what you want is more than a want. It probably turns it into a need. Because while it's difficult to rationalize a want, it's easy to rationalize a need. The reasons we use to sell ourselves on bad decisions are rational lies we buy. We are suckers for ourselves. We are so easily deceived by our own hearts. There is no cure for this, Jeremiah says. You don't outgrow it. It doesn't matter how old you get, how educated you are. You don't outmature it. It is a permanent condition. Permanent conditions, as you know, require constant supervision. It's why no matter how old you are, how much you know, what kind of job you have, what your title is, how much money you make, how well you were parented, how much you pray or go to church, how much you worship, how much willpower you have, how much education you have, you still don't understand why you continue to make bad decisions. It's why you say, I don't understand why I decided what I decided. This is why you do what you tell others not to do. It's why you don't even follow your own advice. It's because your heart never tells you the truth. It deceives you. And it will always deceive you unless you force it to tell you the truth. It's like on a crime show or a murder mystery show, your favorite murder investigation show. It's where they find the perp or the unsub or the suspect, and they get him in the interrogation room, and the suspect lies and hides from the truth until they put him in that room with a special mirrored glass, and they finally force them to tell the truth. So, in the same way, when you are making decisions, you must ask yourself this question and force yourself to tell the truth. Am I being honest with myself? Really? It's like you have to do an interrogation on yourself. Don't rush by this. Stay here. Dig deep. This question will lead to better information and maybe better decisions. It may save you some regret or not. Maybe you just answer this question and do what you're going to do anyway. Just think, you owe it to yourself to know, even if it points you in a direction that you don't intend to go. We talked about this before. Even if you don't change your mind, at least, I plead with you, at least ask this question of yourself and be honest with yourself. Find out, am I telling myself the truth or am I selling myself a regret? It's going to be one of those, and you owe it to yourself to find out which. So, from this point on, you need to make the integrity decision, which says simply, I will not lie to myself, even when the truth makes me feel bad about myself. This will help you live better and make you better at life. Don't miss next time. Well, we'll continue with part 2 of Decide Better, Regret Less.
Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender.